Imagine a train that never needs to refuel, a true perpetual motion machine. Sounds like a sci-fi dream, right? Well, the blueprints for exactly that, a self-powered train, have just surfaced on the dark web, sending shockwaves through the tech world. But here's the burning question: who leaked it, and what does this mean for the future of transportation and intellectual property? The story begins not in the bright boardrooms of innovation, but in the murky underbelly of the internet. Somewhere, hidden behind encrypted walls, a document appeared that could redefine the way humanity thinks about energy. It was titled simply, Infinite Rail System, Self-Sustaining Propulsion Design. At first, many assumed it was a hoax. The dark web is littered with false promises, bizarre claims, and impossible inventions. But then, engineers began to look closer, and what they found left them stunned. The schematics weren't the work of an amateur dreamer. They were precise, detailed, and included complex equations only someone with advanced knowledge of electromagnetism and energy systems could produce. This wasn't a half-baked fantasy. It was a working design for a train that could, in theory, generate its own power indefinitely. For decades, whispers of this technology floated in small, elite engineering circles. They called it the Holy Grail of transportation, a train that would never need coal, diesel, or even electricity from the grid. Instead, it would use a closed-loop system, harvesting and recycling its own energy with near-perfect efficiency. The blueprint leak confirmed what many had suspected but never dared to say publicly: the technology was real. And now it was out there for anyone with an internet connection and the courage to dive into the digital shadows. The immediate question was obvious: where did it come from? Some said it was the work of a whistleblower. Perhaps an engineer who had grown frustrated with corporations keeping humanity shackled to outdated, polluting systems. Others believed it was a cyber attack. State-sponsored hackers could have breached a research lab or a government archive, stealing one of the most valuable secrets of modern science. There were even darker theories. Some claimed the blueprint was deliberately leaked by its creators as a test, to see how the world would react. Whatever the truth, one fact was undeniable. The self-powered train blueprint was now in the wild, and there was no going back. Governments around the world scrambled to assess the threat. This wasn't just about transportation, it was about intellectual property, national security, and global balance of power. If one country could build this train first, it could dominate trade and industry for decades. The leak was a direct strike against the concept of technological secrecy. For centuries, innovations were locked away, patented, and protected, ensuring that only a few profited while the rest of humanity waited. But here, on the dark web, the rules were different. Information wanted to be free. And once something this big leaked, it was impossible to contain. Already, whispers spread across obscure forums. Some users claimed to be replicating parts of the design in their workshops. Others speculated how quickly entire underground networks could build a functioning prototype. It wasn't just corporations that were shaken, it was entire governments. Imagine a train system that never needs external fuel, operating across continents without relying on oil or electricity. It would collapse entire industries overnight. The oil giants, the coal miners, the power grid operators, all rendered obsolete by a machine that feeds itself. The economic fallout could be catastrophic for some and liberating for others. But that wasn't the only issue. Security experts raised alarms that releasing such technology uncontrolled could be dangerous. What if the designs were weaponized? What if rogue groups built self-powered rail systems to smuggle goods, weapons, or even launch autonomous war machines? The ethical dilemma was staggering. Do you celebrate the leak as a step toward democratized innovation, or condemn it as a reckless act that could destabilize society? Meanwhile, deep in the heart of Silicon Valley, boardrooms buzzed with panic. If this blueprint was genuine, it could undermine decades of investment in battery technology, hydrogen fuel cells, and renewable grid projects. The big players, Tesla, Siemens, Alstom, were suddenly vulnerable. How do you compete when someone can download an open-source miracle machine? The blueprint didn't just challenge industries. It challenged the very concept of scarcity. For centuries, humanity's progress has been chained to energy sources: wood, coal, oil, electricity. Every leap forward came at the cost of extracting and consuming. But this train promised something radical: an end to that cycle. A machine that gave more than it took. It was as if humanity had stumbled onto fire again, but this time, the flame never went out. As news of the leak spread beyond the dark web, mainstream media cautiously picked up the story. Headlines read, "Impossible train or future of travel?" Experts were invited to analyze the schematics on live television. Some dismissed it as impractical, citing the laws of thermodynamics. Others, however, admitted reluctantly that the math checked out. If engineered correctly, the system could work. The revelation sparked heated debates online. One camp hailed the leak as the dawn of a new era, where technology was freed from corporate control. The other camp warned of chaos, arguing that not all innovations should be in public hands. The truth lay somewhere in between. History had shown that disruptive technologies often brought both liberation and destruction. The printing press spread knowledge but also destabilized kingdoms. Nuclear power promised clean energy but birthed weapons of mass destruction. And now, the self-powered train blueprint threatened to do the same. The real question wasn't just what the train could do, but who would wield it first. Reports suggested that within weeks of the leak, private labs in Asia and Eastern Europe were already experimenting. Universities quietly circulated the designs among trusted researchers. Governments attempted to block the file spread, but like water, it slipped through every barrier. Encrypted torrents, hidden servers, anonymous re-uploads, it was everywhere. You can't put lightning back in the bottle. The more authorities tried to suppress it, the more people wanted to see it. Hacktivist groups celebrated the leak as a victory against monopolies. They declared that transportation should belong to the people, not to the powerful few. But while they celebrated, intelligence agencies worried. This wasn't just about trains. The principles inside the blueprint could be adapted to other machines. Cars, ships, even aircraft. A new age of self-powered vehicles could be upon us. And it all began with a single leak. The ethical crossroad was clear. Do we embrace this technology, risking instability, or suppress it and risk strangling humanity's progress? Whichever path is chosen, one thing is certain. The world will never be the same again. In the days following the leak, tech analysts compared the blueprint to stolen blueprints of the Manhattan Project, only this time it wasn't about a bomb but about endless motion. The scale of disruption was difficult to imagine, yet impossible to ignore. A single train using this system could run across continents without ever stopping for refueling. That meant cheaper goods, faster shipping, and a dramatic reduction in carbon emissions. Environmentalists began calling it the invention that could single-handedly halt the climate crisis. But skeptics pushed back, arguing that anything promising infinite energy was too good to be true. After all, humanity had seen countless claims of perpetual motion that ended in disappointment. Yet this time felt different, because the schematics weren't vague sketches, they were meticulously crafted with technical depth. The fact that they emerged from secrecy into the chaotic freedom of the dark web only amplified their mystique. Forums lit up with arguments about how soon a working prototype could be built. Some said years, others claimed months, and a few bold voices whispered it might already exist. If prototypes were indeed already running in hidden labs, it would explain why the blueprint seemed so refined. That thought alone terrified energy giants who saw their trillion-dollar empires trembling on unstable ground. Meanwhile, governments met behind closed doors to strategize. Cybersecurity experts warned that if one blueprint could escape, countless others could follow. The leak was not just about trains, it was about the fragility of intellectual property in a hyperconnected age. What happens when the most valuable secrets in the world can be downloaded like a song? That question kept intelligence agencies awake at night. Philosophers and ethicists also weighed in, pointing out that humanity had crossed into a new era of responsibility. Technology that once required years of guarded research could now be scattered to the winds in an instant. It forced society to ask, who should control progress and who deserves access to it? The self-powered train blueprint symbolized more than engineering. It symbolized the struggle between open knowledge and guarded power. And in that struggle, there were no easy answers. As weeks passed, rumors spread of secret test tracks in remote areas where engineers attempted small-scale models. Videos surfaced claiming to show miniature prototypes gliding endlessly on loops of track. Some were clearly fake, others harder to dismiss. Each clip fueled the growing narrative that the age of energy independence was closer than ever. Ordinary people, far removed from the dark web, began to hear about it in cafes, schools, and workplaces. The myth of the self-powered train was becoming mainstream. That was the moment governments realized suppression was no longer an option. The blueprint wasn't just leaked, it had entered culture, imagination, and aspiration. And once an idea captures the imagination, it cannot be erased. So the question remains, staring us in the face like steel rails stretching to the horizon. What will humanity do with a machine that promises to run forever? Will it unite us, breaking chains of scarcity, pollution, and dependency? Or will it divide us, unleashing chaos, greed, and unregulated power? The self-powered train is no longer a secret locked in a vault. It is a possibility in the hands of the world. And its journey has only just begun.